Good afternoon. It's my privilege to introduce Michelle Martin, the CEO of Catholic Charities of Northern Kansas. Many of you may not be familiar with Catholic Charities. No, it is not just for Catholics, or their specific mission. Candidly, 10 years ago, I didn't know a lot about them as well. My story of getting involved, there's kind of a cute story I like to share about how I initially got involved. And about 10 years ago, I was approached with the opportunity to help get the Manhattan office kind of re-energized, revitalized. Was asked to do so, and I didn't know a lot about Catholic Charities, and at that point, my parents were still alive, and I traveled back to Northwest Kansas one weekend, and Dad and I were sitting at the kitchen table playing gin rummy, and I looked at Dad and I said, Dad, I've been asked to get involved with Catholic Charities, kind of get the Manhattan office re-energized, a little boost there, and I just don't know if I should do it or not. And Dad said, oh son, you have to do this. And I said, well, I just don't know a whole lot about them. I said, I'm just not sure. And he says, son, they do very important work, and you need to be involved in that. And I said, well, can you tell me what they do? And my dad paused and he looked at me and he said, son, I don't know what they do, but it's very important work and you need to be involved in it. It has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life, and there's many people in the room that are likewise involved with Catholic Charities. I might single out Larry Erpelding, who's currently on not only the local board, but also on a larger scale. You know, over those years, it's been very rewarding for me to not only help get the chapter re-energized, but also to serve as on the local board as one of their first chairmen, but also on the Northwest or Northern Kansas of Catholic Charities board, which covers 31 counties. Catholic Charities of Northern Kansas is a supporting organization to Catholic Charities USA, and really in short what they do is they provide services to families and individuals. They seek to reduce poverty, and I think many of you may have some information on your table. A lot of these points are on that flyer. We really seek to try to reduce poverty and the impact of poverty on the vulnerable, and that's of course regardless of religion. Michelle will probably share more on these in specific detail in terms of the program, but generally our services include emergency assistance, adoption placement services, mental health counseling on a sliding fee schedule, immigration assistance, Hispanic services, and services for the elderly. On a national level, and I did a little bit of research, and I found the traces of Catholic Charities USA actually go back to the year 1727 and the city of New Orleans is really where the roots of Catholic Charities USA lie. But on a national level, they offer many of the same services, including disaster relief. Many people are not aware, for example, that after Hurricane Katrina, only to be superseded by the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army, Catholic Charities was right there at the #3 position in terms of offering support, including housing rehabilitation efforts. Michelle herself is a native of Minneapolis, Kansas. She's a graduate of Kansas State University School of Journalism. She's also a graduate of the University of Kansas Law School. She holds a Juris Doctorate. Before taking the helm at Catholic Charities, she worked in several different capacities, including practicing law with the Saline County Attorney's Office. She worked as general counsel for several telecommunications companies, many of them you'd be familiar with. And she did operate her own practice, doing primarily in guardian ad litem work, which is a very honorable type of legal work. Please join me in welcoming Michelle Martin.
I'm not used to such a long introduction myself, but I usually just go, I'm a mom. But that's my #1 love and job. But I also told my husband when I accepted this position, the most exciting thing was that I get to go to Manhattan all the time. I can almost pretend like I'm back in school and feel a little younger on some days, and some days a little older too. And Sean's the one person in the room that knows my age, so I have to pay him some money to keep quiet. Sean was in my class. We actually met in law school, so it was kind of a nice surprise to come home. It feels a little bit like coming home when I'm here. With that, I'm going to just briefly focus on, and I have about 6 slides here, and then I have a video, which to me is the most important thing, because I can stand up here and talk to you all day, but the stories from our clients and what we do, I think that speaks more than I can ever say. I can't put it into words the way they can. So, and I spent a lot of time working on that video, so I want to use it more than once, because I just used it in our fundraiser, and it takes a lot of time to teach an old dog new tricks. They've really come a long ways with how you make videos nowadays. So it took me a while, but I got it done. With that, I just briefly, who we are in 2015. We've changed our services a little bit, and I provided to you, I wanted everything to be in a one-page handout, which when you have as many services as we do, that can be a little bit of a challenge, but you have that on your table. Along with that was a new mission statement. We revised it. My goal was to have it into one sentence. We're still a little long for a one sentence, but someone like Hemingway might appreciate it. This isn't my computer, so. The mission statement. Motivated by our Christian faith, Catholic Charities ministers to families and seeks to reduce poverty for the vulnerable, regardless of their religion. That was the most important thing to me, because everyone always seems to believe we only help Catholics, and that is so not true. We don't care what faith anyone is. That isn't a question on any of our questionnaires or when anyone comes in for services. That's not on our mind. It's we're helping people because they're vulnerable, they're poor, or whatever their needs are. We meet them where they are, and that isn't even part of the equation. So I wanted to make sure that was up front in our mission statement, and so I'm pleased to announce our new mission statement. We serve 31 counties. That's like the top half of the 1st district, if you're familiar with that. We go all the way to the border of Nebraska and Colorado, and then all the way to Manhattan. You're the furthest east we cover. It covers the same as the diocese, if you're familiar with the Catholic division and how they divide the diocese. I was not before I came here, but I've become educated the last 18 months. So we have 31 counties, and we do this from 3 offices: Manhattan, Salina, and Hayes. So we don't go all as far west as we probably should. It makes it a little challenging for the Hayes office to go all the way to Goodland. That's still a little far, but that's where we are right now. We serve with 18 employees, 14 full-time and 4 that are part-time. We have 10 programs now, as you can see on your list. I provided it to you. Everyone should have one at their table. And I won't go through all those right now, but the main thing that we try to do with those programs are stabilization services. And we provided last year about 6,381 services with that staff and then all those counties. But our services really center on stabilizing families and the situations they are in. And I like this, there are different little areas. We have Hispanic and immigration services to help people. I have 7 years higher education, and there's no way I can figure out how to do that paperwork. I'm still not qualified. And I've taken some courses in it. It's just such a complex mess. So we try and help people in those situations and fill that need as best as we can. Now we're a little far from any federal courthouses, so we're limited in our services. We do a lot of the paperwork for that. We also have adoption, pregnancy support, and counseling, which is kind of the roots of where I think most Catholic Charities started. My building in Salina is actually the old orphanage, the original orphanage in Salina. So adoption, pregnancy support, and counseling all kind of go together. Our counseling services, as David mentioned, are on a sliding fee scale. And I know your community just completed a report that mental health counseling services for those who are poor and impoverished is a huge need here. And we will go all the way down to $5. And I'm not going to lie to you, there are times when we probably even waive the fee for clients who need it. It is a crucial part. We have certified, licensed individuals in all 3 of the offices to help with those services. So it is a core part of our program. And we have a great person here. If you've never met Jessica, you would really like her. I look up to her a lot. She's a tall individual and a native K-State graduate, and she does a wonderful job here. So if you know of anyone, I know we're kind of hidden where our offices are here. They're back and they're private, which is good for counseling, but Jessica's there, and please refer them if you know of anyone that's needing that service, because we just don't turn someone away if they need help. We also provide emergency assistance for rent, utilities, clothes, food, diapers, and hygiene items. That's probably our biggest department in Salina. However, in the other areas, it's not. We try to cater to what the community needs. So here you have other programs that we don't do as much of that. But if someone calls from Clay Center, they're going to call the Manhattan office, and we might try and get there. We're trying to reach out to more of the other counties where we don't have offices, but in Manhattan, our primary service, we do have hygiene items that we give out here, and those are the things that are covered when you have a vision card. And, toilet paper, diapers, things that are expensive and people sometimes need extra help with. Then we have the KLPP, the REACH, and the Kelly Mead. And I'll let you listen to the video before I go into those a little more. They're basically helping individuals. They're grants we've kind of started. The REACH and Kelly Mead are grants that we started to help people in special circumstances. REACH is for individuals who are mentally handicapped and have a need that's not met by medical, Medicaid, SSI, or anything like that. And Kelly Mead was started on behalf of a gentleman who lost his life and his parents started this for catastrophic illnesses. Families who are affected by catastrophic illnesses, we have a scholarship that we help them. It's kind of based like the Children's Miracle Network. And you'll hear a little bit more about some of those stories in just a few minutes. The KLPP is the Kansas Loan Pool Project. That's where we assist people who become trapped in predatory loans. And again, the stories I think will tell you a little more about that. Just so you know, most of the individuals not everyone, but most of the people we serve are poor. And who is poor? I like to give a little bit of perspective on that. These are the current statistics for 2015. They changed about $80. Every category went up about $80 this year. But if you make $7.25 an hour, that means you're going to, at 40 hours a week, you're going to fall about $15,000, just over $15,000. You can see where that is, for, depending on the size of your family. For two individuals, a husband and wife, or spouses working, $30,000 is where you fall. So a lot of our clients that we see, it only takes one thing, and they don't have the reserves if they're making minimum wage or just above minimum wage. And so that's kind of where they fall, and that's oftentimes what brings them into our doors. The fact that one thing happened. And I think, again, the stories will illustrate that much better than I ever can. So, with not much further ado, I will give you our video testimony. Thank you, Andy.
Started on November 4th. I'll never forget that day. I went into the doctor and I got a flu shot. About 10 days later was my first visit to the emergency room, and I was hospitalized for about 4 days. They dismissed me without a diagnosis and sent me home. I didn't even have enough strength to walk from my bed into the bathroom, so I contacted a friend of mine, and she came over right away and took me to the emergency room again. So they did admit me to the hospital. We got to the point where it got really bad, and I couldn't even move myself. I couldn't roll over. I couldn't do anything. And at that point, they moved me to the ICU. Dr. Davis said, yes, it's Guillain-Barré. Guillain-Barré. It's an autoimmune disorder that starts by attacking the lining of the nerves. And the lining of the nerves just starts going away, and it slowly works up, and to where if your nerves aren't working, then the muscles aren't working. If the muscles aren't working, then you're paralyzed, and it moves up to where even it affects the muscles around the lungs, so your lungs don't work, and the muscles around your heart, and even my face was paralyzed. I couldn't smile. Even my face. I had to go through a procedure called plasmapheresis. The plasmapheresis is kind of like dialysis, where instead of cleansing your blood, they're cleansing my plasma. Then it started affecting more of my lungs. At one point, Dr. Davis would come in and check my reflexes, and he would poke me with little pins and see how far I had feeling. And at one point, he had all of his students in there, and he was poking my legs, and he shook his head, and he said, "It's all gone." And I was on the ventilator, and all I could do was lay there and look at him and hear it. I started getting better again, and Dr. Davis came in and told me, you have several options, but you have to go to rehabilitation. It's going to be a long process, and then I have to learn to walk and feed myself and everything all over again. And I went to Madonna Rehabilitation in Lincoln, Nebraska. I am still affected. The nerves in my feet and my ankles are not healed yet, and it is very hard to walk. It's very painful. When I stand up, it's a pain like I can't express. But I want to walk, so I do it. I refuse to give in. While I was in the hospital, my daughters went and stayed with a friend. So they were living there with them, and nobody was in my house. A water line broke on my hot water heater during this time. It was spraying water. Nobody knows exactly how long this went on before somebody found it, and it did a lot of damage. And they put us in contact with Catholic Charities, who has also provided my family with help to fix our home. You can reach out for help. And people won't look down on you. They won't think they're all. They're amazing.
I had 2 payday loans out that was like $1,500 together. They were taking my checks every week. I had maybe $50 left out of my checks, and I make pretty good money working where I work. I didn't know of any of the places to go to, and I've really never been in that situation. So not only was I kind of humiliated, but embarrassed to have to go out to ask for the help, because I had never done that before. So someone recommended to me to go to Catholic Charities for help, so I actually went there for utility help, and they referred me, they gave me food, of course, and personal items, and then they referred me to Claudette, because I spoke to them about my payday loans, and that's why they needed to know why I was in need of such help. Claudette helped me with the payday loan pool program. I felt relief. I felt like I had a new chance on life. I actually smiled for the first time in 9 months the day I left there. I would just like to take a minute to thank Catholic Charities and everyone that works there. They're all very kind. No one ever made me feel lower or less of a person for being there. My life has changed dramatically. I smile every day. I have a savings account now. I pay my bills on time. I did pay my pool loan off early, which I'm very proud of myself for. I take great pride in myself now, again, like I used to. I hold my head up every day, and I get up and I go to work, and I live my life.
Catholic Charities has been a godsend to help us. It's made Josh's life 100% better. I appreciate everything they did. Josh had no way of getting around. He was homebound. He had no transportation to go anywhere. And we found out OCCK was auctioning off vans, handicap vans.
They gave us money for the van, $500, and when did we get that?
We got $500 from Catholic Charities and $500 from the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. It meant so much. It gets Josh out of the house. He can get to and from doctor's appointments, therapies, going out with the family, going to church. He gets out of the house more. He doesn't have to sit in the house and look at the four walls. He's out socializing.
Yeah.
He's even got a job now as a volunteer at the hospital. He's happier.
I'm happier. I try to go see the world. How to play kids, yeah. Will that done? Where would my life be right now? I'll still be inside the house. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you for indulging me in listening to that video. That's what keeps me going. That's why I do what I do every day, especially stories like Josh. It makes it worthwhile. Some days are challenging, to say the least, but stories like Josh's always make it worthwhile. So I like to share them. All three of those programs that you saw today are services we do offer here in Manhattan. They're probably not always the best known. We're a little bit hidden, but we do those. Those are through the REACH service. The last individual, Josh, was through the REACH service, the program to help individuals with disabilities, the grant program that we have there. We helped him purchase a van, which made a huge difference in his life. Then we also have the Kelly Mead program for catastrophic illnesses. That's where we helped Donita through that to help repair her home. We are a small part. $500 doesn't always get you a great deal, but it's a help when you're in a situation like Donita was facing. The Kansas Loan Pool Project. That is a newer service we are starting here. We've been working here for a while. Our video last year also featured a person from Manhattan with that service. That's when an individual gets stuck in a payday loan. They can be in those loans sometimes for 2.5 years and still owe the same original $500 they started with and pay 299% interest. So we've tried. We're a small David and Goliath situation. We are David facing a giant dent in this, and the more people we turn away that we can't help because we can only go up to $2,000 at the most, and we just raised that limit, and too many people are trapped in more, and we won't be able to work with them. The goal is to case manage them until they pay off the loan. They don't always know we're the security, and the reason the bank that we partner with is able to give that loan out, because otherwise the bank wouldn't be able to help them, but we get them and transition them into a regular loan and help them pay off. And it's making a difference. But again, we're David against Goliath. The problem is enormous. I turn away more people than we can even accept, because we know that they won't be able to work the program before they exceed our limits. But those are the types of things we're doing. We're working more and more here in Manhattan and getting clients, and it's one at a time. It's a starfish at a time. If you know the old story about, we may just say one starfish at a time, but at least we're trying what we can to make a difference. And I sure appreciate your time, and they told me, and so I'm trying really hard to stay on time and wrap it up here. But that's a little bit about what we do. I would entertain any questions that you have. All of the services you see listed there are available to the degree that they're needed in that area. We try really hard not to duplicate services. Originally, we just did emergency services in Salina. Since I've been on board, I said, we'll do what we can in the other areas, but it's been very clear to me in Manhattan that a lot of those services are covered. In Hayes, I have found, though, the middle of the month, the place that has helps with rent utilities is calling us now and saying, we're out of funds, can you please help this person? And we try to do what we can. Sometimes we don't always have funding for programs, but I tend to like to say, if we do the right thing, that'll happen. So we do the best we can. We're trying to make our small difference, and I appreciate your time. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy, and I'll stay around, and I promised George I'd help pick up the flyers that are left. So, yes.
Do you cooperate and connect with other 501c3s in the communities that you serve and refer people back and forth and so forth?
Yes, we do. I think all of us would state no one has enough funds to do everything you want to do, so we try to not duplicate services in as much as we can. I'm only one person, so sometimes it's a little hard, and I'm trying to encourage more people in each office to reach out as much as we can. Call this person if you can help. This will show my age a little bit even more, but I think since they privatized everything, it used to be back in the old days when I started practicing law, everyone would just go to social SRS, now DCF, and that's where they got their help. But now with privatization, no one knows. I know when I came back to practice law after he left out, I took a hiatus a few years when I had kids. And when I resumed practicing and I had gone back after being in the corporate world and staying home for a while, I said to the judge, how do you figure out where to go for help? And she said, you just have to start doing it. And those were her, you just have to get in there and figure it out. I said, well, how are people who are impoverished and sometimes don't have a degree supposed to figure it out? I have 7 years higher education, I don't know where to go. And she said, you gotta figure it out. So it's being resourceful in those areas and trying as much as we can to connect in those areas. I don't think we can ever have enough information in each area what the needs are. The other difficult thing is getting people to the services. In Manhattan, you're fortunate because you're close to services, but when you get past Salina, services become harder and harder to get. And even when you're poor, going from Ellsworth to Salina is hard. From Goodland to Hayes is like a foreign country. And if you don't have reliable transportation or gas or anything of that nature, it becomes almost impossible to get the $5 an hour counseling service that's 6 hours away. And you probably have an employer who's not so keen for you to take the whole day off if you are working. So, you know, there are challenges. There are challenges. And of course, I want to work with everyone I can because I can't do it all. In Salina, I know better my services, so I do refer more there. I'm learning in Manhattan. I didn't ever dream I'd be here, and when I was here, I had no idea what was here beyond the borders of the campus and maybe Aggieville. But actually, when I worked for the Collegian, I did have Points Avenue, so I was very familiar with Points, and I was very excited when our offices are on Points, for those of you who don't know here. And I was like, I know Points. That was my territory. Of course, none of the offices are the same as when I was going to school back here, but anyway, any others?